Crime Obscene is a true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. It was the 14th of September 2007, and the sun was still very much alive in the UK, not yet succumbing to autumn's bite. The Gosden family were all getting ready for the day ahead. The youngest of the family, Andrew, had a little more difficulty waking up than usual, and his mother, Glenys, noticed he seemed irritable. Other from that, Andrew went about getting himself together for school, and about 8 a.m. was after leaving for the bus. He was observed by a family friend who had been sitting on a park bench not too far from the bus, heading upon his usual route. However, Andrew did not go to school that morning. Instead, Gosden went to an ATM, withdrew £200, returned home, changed from his school uniform to a black Slipknot T-shirt and black jeans, whisked his wallet, keys, and PSP, PlayStation Portable, into a distinctive schoolbag that had a variety of rock and metal band patches on it. Andrew then left home, and this was the last time he was ever there again. In today's bizarre case, we look at the 15-year-long perplexing disappearance of Andrew Gosden. Hello, welcome to Crime Obscene. I'm your host, Aaron. Before we begin, I want to express a deep apology for being away for so long and appreciate your patience. If you didn't already know, Crime Obscene is a true crime podcast focusing on unsolved murders, disappearances, and beyond. It is a solo venture, written, produced, and edited by me, so your support is greatly appreciated. If you enjoy the podcast, please consider dropping a like on your preferred podcatcher and a review. This greatly helps the podcast grow and, more importantly, reach new listeners' ears that might hold information on the cases we cover here. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1: Crime Timeline. Andrew Paul Gosden was born the 10th of July 1993 in Doncaster, Yorkshire, United Kingdom, to parents Glenys and Kevin Gosden, and had one older sister. Gosden's parents are Anglican Christian, but growing up he and his sister were not forced into the religion, the parents wanting their children to make up their own minds about it. Before, Andrew had not been to church for more than a year. Growing up, Andrew displayed a high intellect, so he was placed in the Young and Gifted program in his school, and in which he had a 100% attendance record. Gosden was also a prize-winning mathematician and seemed destined for great things in future educational opportunities. Outside of this, Andrew enjoyed the usual things someone his age might enjoy, such as playing video games. He owned a Sony PlayStation Portable, or PSP, and listening to a variety of rock and metal bands. The weeks and months of the summer of 2007 were regular. Gosden's parents stated they encouraged Andrew to stay with his grandmother in London for a period of time, but he declined. As the summer ended, Gosden began his semester at school. It was noticed on a few occasions he had begun walking home from school. Considerable distance, as normally he'd get the bus, which was about a 4-mile journey, taking over an hour to complete. Though speculated this might have been a hint of some school trouble such as bullying, this can't be substantiated, as Andrew was rather closed off when it came to his school matters, saying little of his experience there. The 14th of September was just another ordinary day. Andrew was 8 days into his new semester, and found it a little bit difficult that morning to wake up. His mother noted he woke up a bit cranky. Other from that, Gosden began his day by getting ready for school, and was out of the house by 8 AM. The local reverend, who was also a family friend of the Gosdens, was sitting on a bench near the park, along the usual route Andrew took to school. And he did see Andrew that morning. What the reverend didn't see was Gosden deviated from the route shortly after. Andrew went to a local garage, onto the ATM. There, Gosden drained his entire bank account to £200, only having around 214 in the bank. Though Andrew had cash in his room, saved up from past birthdays, to the amount of 100, that he inexplicably left. Andrew hung around in the park, waiting for his family to leave, his parents for work, and his sister for school. He can be observed on a neighbour's CCTV returning home. There, Gosden removed his school clothes, placing them in the laundry hamper, hung a school blazer on a chair. He then changed into a pair of jeans and a black Slipknot T-shirt, picking up his bag emblazoned with patches of the bands he loved, his wallet, PSP and keys. Andrew once again left the house. Fortunately, Andrew is captured leaving by the same neighbour's camera. Gosden walked to the nearby Doncaster train station and purchased a one-way ticket to London for £31. The ticket agent recalled it odd that when offering a return ticket to Gosden, he declined, even though the return ticket was £1 cheaper. Boarding the train, shortly after 9:30, Gosden was observed by the woman sitting beside him, occupied with his PSP. The train made a 2-hour journey to London, letting off at King's Cross station. It is here the last confirmed sighting of Andrew is observed, on a still of CCTV footage that unfortunately is not seen by investigators or family for some time. Chapter 2. A Perfect Storm. The Gosden family were home for some time. They did not think anything amiss. Andrew was a quiet young man, and they thought he might have been playing video games, or in his room doing homework. No one suspected he was anywhere but home. It was during dinner time, when Andrew's sister Charlotte was instructed to call him, that it was discovered he was not there. Initially, alarm was low. The family figured he might have gone to a friend's house and lost track of time. But when getting in touch with friends and learning the truth that Andrew had not even gone to school, the family went into panic stations. Charlotte said, quote, "We initially thought something must have happened on the way to school. When we found out he hadn't even been to school, even tried to go to school, that was ever more worrying." End quote. You might be thinking to yourself, how Gosden effectively played truant on the day of school without someone in the school notifying his parents. Unfortunately, human error had a hand to play. The school had believed they called her home and left a message, but it was for the wrong number and therefore left for the wrong people. Within hours of discovering Andrew was missing, the missing persons flyer had been made and distributed. Family and friends were canvassing the area, searching the route he would have taken to school, doing anything and everything they could think of, and going well into the night. South Yorkshire Police got involved, searching the local bushes in the vicinity of Doncaster, but turning up nothing. If not for the woman who sold Andrew his ticket, not recalling the odd refusal of the return ticket, investigators would have been at a loss for crucial information in the early days of the investigation. When she came forward 3 days later, the SYP, in conjunction with the British Transport Police, were able to track Gosden down to King's Cross. They scoured the surveillance cameras but could not initially pick him out of the crowd, only 3 weeks later gaining the footage that depicted Gosden exiting the train station in a Slipknot t-shirt and having a carrier bag slung over his shoulder. It is unknown in what direction he went after disembarking. With the wrong number called to the wrong house, and a substantial time of 3 weeks passing before police were able to get the CCTV footage, it was almost a perfect storm of things going wrong in trying to track down the missing young man. In the days after Andrew's disappearance, family made the journey to London to hand out flyers. It was thought that Gosden may have gone to stay with relatives there. Remember, his grandmother lived in London, but no one had seen him. Kevin Gosden noted it did not seem like Andrew had intention of staying in London, as not only did he leave the house fairly light, with just clothes on his back and no jacket, but he also left his PSP charger at home. Then again, Andrew was described as being easily forgetful, and may have neglected to bring such things. The SYP turned their investigation to the electronics that Andrew had. It was thought that maybe Andrew had begun talking to someone online and arranged to meet them. But that was thrown into doubt when they learned the only computer in the house belonged to Charlotte, and she did not even have this long, about 8 weeks, and she did not recall him ever using it, stating Andrew did not seem very interested in social media. They then looked into the Xbox and PSP angle. It was learned Andrew did not have any known email account linked to either console. The PSP had a distinctive serial number which was sent to the Sony HQ and was checked to see if that device had ever connected online or had any associated accounts. It did not. It would be important to note here that Andrew was gifted. It was not entirely out of the realm of possibility. He had found some workaround in achieving an online presence without his parents or even investigators being able to learn about it. But considering how thorough a job SYP did in investigating the various devices, it was unlikely. Police did not halt for long. The focus was shifted into the question that was on everyone's mind. Why did Andrew travel to London? As it was already stated, Gosden had an extended family who lived in the capital, and he and his family would often travel up there when he was growing up. So it was looked at into could he have maybe wanted to take in the sights? Another possibility, which was sort of linked to the social media angle, was whether Andrew went to London to attend a YouTube gathering that was happening up there. But again, this was deemed unlikely due to his unsociable tendencies. Interestingly enough, there was a thought he may have gone to attend a concert. A band Andrew listened to, 30 Seconds to Mars, was due to play the Brixton Academy that night. Another band, named Sixth, were to play a farewell gig, performing for the last time with their vocalists at the time, making it a special occasion. This was also in the vicinity and walking distance of King's Cross. Investigators appealed to crowdgoers from both concerts to check photos and videos they may have taken that night and be extra vigilant for possible sightings of Andrew. This yielded no results. Another theory that was actually put forward by Kevin Gosden was maybe Andrew had gone to London to reinvent himself. Andrew at the time watched the show The Fall and Rise of Reginald Pellerin, a show in which the protagonist goes to extreme lengths to reinvent himself. Kevin stated in 2009, quote, "Did he decide to do the Reginald Pellerin thing and reinvent himself? In my heart, I still think his disappearance was a spur-of-the-moment thing." End quote. Kevin also put forward that Andrew may have been struggling with his sexual orientation as a possible reason for his running away. He made it clear that he and his wife were an open family and did not have any issue with it if he was gay. In 2011, the River Thames was searched, utilising sonar for any sign of Andrew, a theory being he may have committed suicide or disposed of some personal effects in the river. And though a body unrelated to the Gosden case was discovered, nothing related to Andrew turned up. The entire ordeal has left the Gosden family reeling from the pain, and his father has had to leave work due to the trauma. He even made an attempt on his life that thankfully was unsuccessful. Chapter 3: Critique of a Critical Investigation. The Gosden family was looked into following the disappearance of their son. Particular focus was on Kevin. This was frustrating for the family, as it felt like it was an overfocus. The police went as far as even to conduct unlawful recorded interviews with Kevin, who was put under pressure to give up information he may or may not have had on Andrew's disappearance. Despite later being cleared of any involvement, the type of emotional trauma this surely had on Kevin is unimaginable. The family was particularly critical of the investigation around the considerable time it took for them to retrieve the CCTV. After all, 3 weeks passed before footage of Andrew leaving his cross was found. This was due in part to the BTP not being able to pick Gosden out of a crowd and need SYP assistance to do so. The gap in time had a detrimental effect on the case, making other valuable footage that could have been found of him in other locations impossible, as these places and venues would have taped over the previous week's footage. For instance, a sighting was reported of Gosden in a Pizza Hut an hour's walk from the train station, but by the time investigators learned of this, the restaurant had long since taped over the working hours from the weeks before. It is said that there are over 100 different sightings that could have been called into police, 45 of them in London and 11 in Brighton, a coastal town near London. Other sightings, like Gosden sleeping rough in a park, were 5 days later, the 19th of September, seen in warmer clothes, or of a woman who claimed she spoke to a boy and mentioned he looked like the boy she saw on TV, to which the boy denied, were not followed up on, according to family. A massive 6 weeks going by before SYP questioned this woman, for instance. Chapter 4. Over the Years. As previously stated, there have been numerous reported sightings of Gosden, and despite the time frame in which investigators checked these, they did check them. The bands Him and Muse have also lent their hand in helping. Him, who were a Finnish rock band Gosden listened to, were to play a small invitation-only show on the 17th of September, did what they could to aid investigators. And, in 2009, Muse helped publicise the case at one of their live shows. Gosden's father also attended this concert and handed out flyers depicting the age progression of Andrew. In the November of 2008, a man walked into a police station during the evening time hours and used an intercom system the police station had in effect to report he had information about Andrew. By the time someone was able to come to the front of the station, the man was gone. Later, someone wrote anonymously into the BBC claiming to be that man. The man wrote of a possible sighting of Gosden in November 2008 in Shrewsbury. It was never corroborated whether the two individuals were the same person or if the information they gave was accurate. A year later, in November 2009, Andrew's father would make an appeal to the gay community for help. As it is stated in the past, the family wondered if Andrew had been struggling with his sexual orientation, and may have felt he could not disclose this to his family. The Gosdens once again expressed their support if Gosden was indeed gay. The case remained steadily active over the years. Age progression photos were consistently made. The police made fresh appeals for information in 2017, the tone of which sounded like investigators felt Gosden may still be alive. They circulated his fingerprints, dental and health records, and the SYP made yearly checks on John Doe cases in hospitals. In June 2018, there was a report that someone online, using the alias Andrew, had a conversation with someone, stating that their boyfriend had left them and they needed £200 to cover rent. When asked for bank details, the person claimed to not have a bank account due to leaving home when they were 14. What made this report more promising is that Andy Room was a nickname the family had for Andrew. Unfortunately, as it is with a lot of these cases, it was investigated but no definitive link could be made. There was renewed interest in Andrew's case on December 8, 2021. Police made arrests of two males, aged 38 and 45, on suspicion of human trafficking and kidnap, the older of the two men being arrested for possession of child pornography. Several devices connected to the men were seized for forensic investigation, the results of which could take a year. Chapter 5. Theories and Conclusion. Andrew's case is unique in many aspects. The number of questions around his disappearance, such as why he made the trip to London, why did he refuse the return ticket, and so on. The reason I feel it has such a pull for me on a personal level is how much I identify with Andrew. Not being so far from age, we also have similar interests. I listen to rock and metal bands like Slipknot. In fact, I owned a t-shirt like the one Andrew was wearing in King's Cross Station. We also like gaming, are a little bit more on the reserve side when it comes to socializing, so there definitely is a personal thread there. In a city as vast as London, being able to vanish without a trace isn't that hard, with so many side streets and alleys, heavily trafficked from 1 minute to the next, can easily get lost in. But with how densely populated London is, there's also that added fact that there's more people being around. Someone was bound to have noticed a 14-year-old boy wandering around. Like the train ticket seller, for instance. If it were not for her being especially observant, the King's Cross footage may have been taped over and lost forever, like other potential footage that the investigators did not get on time. And that is one of the biggest points of contention here. Who knows where the investigation would have gone if it didn't take 3 weeks. To try and understand Andrew's disappearance, we really have to understand his choices. Why London? Why that particular day? Why leave his phone charger? Some questions are easy to propose an answer to than others. Like leaving his phone charger, for instance. Maybe he felt he wasn't going to need it, because he wasn't going to be there long. This would explain why he didn't bring changes of clothes, toiletries, etc. And just when you think you've gotten a reasonable explanation for one thing, something else pops out. He refused the return ticket. Andrew is intelligent. Surely he would have thought the return ticket would make the most logical thing to purchase. Right? Even still, his father did say that his son could be forgetful, or not as street savvy. So, that could be factored into the young man's decision making that day. I know when I was 14, I didn't exactly have the greatest thinking cap on, and was greatly short-sighted to my actions and consequences. Kevin Gosden has stated one reason for his son's disappearance was that perhaps he left London to do something that was easier to seek forgiveness for than permission. With all missing persons cases, one can spend endless amounts of time with speculation. We can think of every possible angle, every train of thought, and always with cases that have significant eyewitnesses and even CCTV that showcases where the person was, what time they boarded the train, what time they disembarked on. You can lock things down to a very narrow window of time. But the frustrating thing is, after King's Cross, we have no confirmed sightings of Andrew, and that is so perplexing. Thinking through today's eyes, there is GPS and everything, or at least the capacity to trace someone's location. Andrew did not have a phone, and I don't expect this PSP had the component in it that would enable Sony, or anyone else for that matter, to get a fix on it. Though I don't think the technology was quite there in the early 2000s for something like that. With that said, it is quite interesting to note that Andrew did not have an email address linked to either the Xbox or PlayStation, considering he had both those devices. But again, that might be current trends and events influencing my thinking, considering we live in an age where personal data is heavily linked to our online devices. When we try to narrow our focus down and consider the few theories family and investigators have shared over the years, the prevailing four are as follows. 1. Andrew decided to do the Reginald parent thing, start a new life. 2. He's living a transient lifestyle. 3. He met someone who may have had nefarious motives. And 4. He went to London to end his life. The first two are definitely the most sought after outcomes. If Andrew did decide to fake his own death, or at least in a manner of speaking, run away with the aim of not returning, there's a chance he's out there, somewhere. What adds weight to this theory is, of course, the curious exchange reported by a person who had a conversation with someone who went by Andy Rue, and they claimed their boyfriend left them and they needed money for rent. Not only does this person know the intimate nickname used by family for Andrew, but also, by some coincidence, the amount they stated they needed was £200. If that was coincidence, then it is very interesting. And of course, this person may have been pulling a con. They may have heard this nickname and the story itself reported by media and figured, hey, I might be able to score a quick buck. Sure of that person reaching out again, we may never know. But then we have that person who went into the police station a year after Gosden went missing. It really irks me to learn that said person did not wait for an officer to attend to them. Sure, they may have gotten cold feet, but then why contact the BBC anonymously later on to say only that they had a sighting of Andrew to report? It just seems quite anticlimactic after going through all that effort to only reveal that perhaps this person knew more than they stated, got cold feet out of guilt or fear with the knowledge they had. That, again, is just conjecture on my part. The first and second reason do feel similar. If he faked his own death, then he may be living a transient lifestyle. Though Andrew was admittedly very intelligent and resourceful, it doesn't feel probable he was able to create an entirely new identity to use to finish school, get a qualification and get a job. The fact investigators run his fingerprints, dental records and other information against John Doe cases is telling, and this shows that Andrew may not have left a paper trail since 14th of September 2007 that we can find. Did he necessarily need to leave a paper trail, though? There is an unconfirmed sighting of Andrew later during the week, apparently sleeping rough in a park, and later on being seen in warmer clothes. Could he have just spent the last of his cash preparing for a life off the grid, getting some bare essentials and finding a place to lay low? And that brings us to thinking, if he's not supporting himself, then maybe someone else is supporting him. Maybe he met someone online, they offered him a chance to disappear, assuring him he may never want for anything again. While not out of the realm of possibility, I personally don't think that kind of offer would be made without some ulterior motive. And yes, it might be pessimistic of me to believe that, but it just is unfortunately a very rare occurrence. And that brings us to this. Did Andrew end his life? Did he feel the pressures of school were too much and it caused him a lot of stress? Did he struggle with his sexuality that caused him to feel he could not bridge that conversation with his family? Or the social repercussions he felt may happen if he did come out? In all honesty, from what I've read of his family, they come across as a very open and supportive family. And whilst yes, there is two sides to everything and everyone, they did say that nothing but love and support was waiting for him if he did come out. Kevin even went as far as to reach out to the gay community to ask for help to locate his son. That's just very telling. The fact they searched the River Thames and did not find a body of Andrew dwindles down the possibility of him attempting suicide in the city. Could he have gotten a train to another district or rural area to do something? Possibly, sure. He would have made another train ride though, and that would open up the possibility of more sightings. With all the little information we do have, one can only hope that the Gosden family find some trace of their son soon, so that they can find some peace after these 15 dreadful years. When last seen, Andrew Gosden was 14 years old, wearing a black Slipknot T-shirt and black jeans. He had small, rectangular, slim-framed glasses and long, sandy blonde hair with a side fringe parted right. His hair may be longer or shorter now, exposing one of his ears that has a distinctive double ridge. Andrew was last seen departing King's Cross Station after travelling from Doncaster to London, arriving shortly after 11 a.m. There is a CCTV still of the footage in circulation online. If you have any information, you are encouraged to free text or call 116000 to leave confidentially if you wish. You can also visit missingpeople.org.uk /help-us-find